Happy Tuesday. It is week 22 for your essentials class, and this week I'm going to introduce unit 9 in IEW. So we are on a brand new unit because you should have completed your Faces of History paper. So congratulations, and don't worry, I promise that you will get to present your Faces of History a paper along with your speech. It just may be a little delayed. We may have to do it over this summer, but Miss Dana and Miss Tara and I, we have all agreed that you guys have worked too hard to not be able to get together and show us all the hard work that you have done. Okay, so don't worry. You will be doing your Faces of History. We just don't know when yet. Even if it's this summer, we promise that we'll all get together. Okay, so let's get right into it. We are on unit 9, brand new. It is called a formal critique. Doesn't that sound fancy? Okay, a formal critique is really just your opinion about something that you have read or maybe a movie that you have seen. For moms, it's what we probably called when we were in school a good old-fashioned book report. Okay, so a formal critique is giving your readers information about what you may have read or what you may have seen, and then ending it with a conclusion. And the conclusion is just your opinion. So there's no right or wrong answer. Go ahead and get out your writing books. And I want you to turn to page 235. We're in lesson 28. Now, you have the option of what you want to write on. You can use the guide and you can use the source text. You can write on Genghis Khan, or maybe you have a favorite book that you want to tell us about, or maybe it's a movie that you have just seen and you want to give us that information on. The source of what you want to write about is pretty flexible. You can use the book that we have, or you can use something that you enjoy. It's up to you. Okay, but let's look, because first we need to review some information that we learned in Unit 3. Okay, do you remember when we wrote about stories? Like we would retell a story that maybe we have read or maybe a movie that we had seen. And we had a story sequence chart because every story has a guideline of how it needs to be told. So first you have an introduction, kind of how it sets it up. And then we talk about the setting, where it's located at. Then we talk about the characters, who is in the story, what. Then we have a conflict or a problem. So think about the 3 little pigs. What was the problem? The big bad wolf is trying to blow their house just down, right? And they have to keep going to the different houses. So tell me, what's the problem in the story? Then remember we had a climax or a resolution. It gets right there. Oh my gosh, she's about to try to blow the house down with the bricks. And what happens? It doesn't get blown down because it's made out of bricks. That's the resolution, right? And depending on which story you read, depends on how it really ends in the 3 little pigs. There's a variety of different endings for that story that I've learned. So we start with the introduction. We have the setting and the characters. We have the conflict, the problem, the climax, and then how the problem is solved. And then in our formal critique, we have a conclusion. And the conclusion is your opinion of the story. Now, when we were in Unit 3, we were retelling the story. So you were just telling me maybe the little pig screamed and said, ah, you would put that in there. But that's not how it's going to be this week, all right? You are only giving me the facts, okay? So this week, you're only going to write 3 paragraphs. We're going to take this week and next week, and we're going to have a 5-paragraph paper, all right? But this week, we're only going to work on the body. Next week, you'll add your introduction and your conclusion, okay? So this is going to combine 2 skills, all right? You're going to add the story sequence chart, and then you're going to add the elements of how you've already learned how to write a well-written introduction and conclusion. Okay, this is what an example of what your keyword outline may look like. Now, yours better have more than 2 lines on it, okay? You can have 4 or 5 different ideas for your keyword outline. But what you're gonna do is you're gonna first talk about your settings and your characters. So I want you to tell me, where did it take place, all right? And then who is in the story and what are they like? So for instance, our 3 little pigs, where did it take place? A forest, there were 3 houses, there were some pigs, and a big bad wolf, all right? So maybe our sentence would be, throughout the forest, there were 3 homes that lived naive, let's use precise adjectives, naive pigs and an evil, villainous, is that a word? Big bad wolf, okay? Also, think about, instead of saying there was a good guy or a bad guy, maybe you call him a hero or a villain. And then I want you to tell me about each one of the characters in the story, okay? Now, if you think about Frozen, the movie, you don't have to tell me about every townsperson, but tell me about the main characters, okay? So let's talk about the big bad wolf. He was cunning, he was hangry, or he was hungry. The big bad wolf, that's who we're talking about. And maybe he was sinister. So use quality, good quality adjectives. Then once you've told me about who's in the story and what they're like, I want you to tell me about the conflict or the problem. So tell me, let's see, what's the problem in that story? We have the big bad wolf. He wanted to eat 3 pigs, so they built 3 houses, all right? Now, tell me about the first pig. The first pig built a house out of straw, and it didn't work out. And so what did the pig say? He screamed. Or how did he feel? So tell me that. Now, you're not going to have a dialogue between your 2 characters because that would be retelling the story. You are only giving me the facts. Then after that, let's go to the climax or the resolution, all right? So what event built up to the height of the story, the most intense part of the story? So now they're at the 3rd little pig's house that was made out of brick, and it was strong, which made them happy. Then you go on and you tell me more about that, and then tell me, how did it end? How did the whole problem with the big bad wolf trying to eat the pigs, how did that come to a resolution? Well, it depends on which story you're reading, but in the one that I remember, the big bad wolf fell through the roof somehow, I don't remember. He fell through the roof into a pot, and he wasn't happy. I think, depending on which translation or which version you're reading, sometimes the wolf gets ate, or sometimes he runs away, or I don't know. It's kind of weird. But in your story, you tell me how it resolved. That's all we're going to work on this week. It's just those 3 paragraphs. Next week, you'll work on your introduction and your conclusion. Okay, thanks for bearing with me with that video. It's kind of hard to get all myself in the video with making sure that you could see the board. Okay, now, while you are working on putting your keyword outline into sentences, I want you to focus on a couple things: using precise adjectives and using some of these terms from our critique thesaurus. So your mom should have one in her TWSS guide. You may have one, I think, in the back of your student book, but I know your mom does in the back of her teacher's manual. And all of this does, you know what a thesaurus is? Most of you probably do because you already probably use one while you've been working on your papers. But a thesaurus is just a handy guide that gives us different words for common words. So if I want to find a different word for bad and I can't come up with anything, then I'm going to flip to my thesaurus, and it's going to give me a whole host of different words that mean the same thing for bad. So that's what thesaurus is. So anyways, if you're talking about a story and you don't want to use the word story, maybe you want to fancy it up a little bit, you could use the word saga or narrative. So in this narrative, a legend, tragedy, a comedy, a novel, an anecdote, or a myth. If I wanted to describe my characters, maybe I would say there are 3 participants in this story. Or there is a victim, there's a villain, there's a protagonist and an antagonist. Ooh, that sounds fancy. If you can look that up and tell me what it is, then I'll be so proud of you, because those are drama terms. Okay? Or maybe they're dynamic. You have a main character, a central character, a major or minor. Maybe they have a major role or a minor role. Let's talk about a setting. A long ago, ancient, Middle Ages, medieval. So you don't have to say, once upon a time. Okay, that probably wouldn't fit in the story anyways. But you can say there are different words that causes the reader to engage more than just saying good, bad, she's pretty, ugly, things like that. Mean, nice. So look at this list and use some of those words in your paper. Okay, now the checklist, moms, is going to be on page 244, all right? So this week, all you're working on is paragraphs 2, 3, and 4, and it's the same thing. You can just do the little checklist, okay? All right, well, that is it for this lesson. It's just kind of merging a couple lessons together. Okay, so your assignment is you need to write 3 paragraphs on either the Genghis Khan in the book, or another book that you like, or another movie that you've seen, and then share with us your favorite paragraph that you have created this week. Post it on this video. We'll keep it all together. Post it on this video so that we can watch it together and celebrate your success. So, thank you so much for watching, and here's my encouragement to you mamas. I know that this is out of our routine. I know for me it is as well, but hang in there, okay? Keep pushing along. Be diligent in the work that your kids are doing. Keep encouraging them. I know that I'm tired too, and it feels like I'm out of my routine, but hang in there. And I promise that I know that you may think, ooh, 3 paragraphs this week. Jeremy, what are you thinking? But your kids can do this. Kids, you can do this. Do not look at your mom and say, 3 paragraphs, can't do this. Yes, you can, because you have been doing it for 21 weeks. 21 weeks, you've already done this. So you guys just put what you know together, work together, and I cannot wait to see what you guys all come up with next week. All right, have a good day.